Have you ever felt like there are no games to play despite all these new games releasing every single week? Like you browse through the storefronts, you watch the trailers, and you still end up staring at your library with nothing to play. So today, we are cutting through all that noise. We are counting down the top 15 indie games that you absolutely need to experience for yourself. Hi folks, welcome to CryptoMac, and let's get started. So we're kicking things off this list with Crow Country, and look, I know we just got a shiny new Resident Evil game, but honestly, maybe that is actually the perfect excuse to pivot and play something like this instead. Because while Capcom is off making action blockbusters, Crow Country went back to grab the specific vibe and formula of those original Resident Evil games from the PS1 era. You are stepping into the shoes of Mara Forest, and you are exploring this gloriously creepy abandoned theme park. I mean, we are talking about fixed camera angles, tank controls if you are a purist, and that distinct low-poly aesthetic where everything looks like charming little blocks until it suddenly moves to eat your face. But the genius here is that it doesn't just copy the look, it replicates the rhythm of those classics. You are walking through a spooky fairground, solving multi-layered puzzles where you have to actually pay attention to notes left by employees, managing your limited inventory, and deciding if it is worth wasting bullets on a monster or if you should just try to run past it. And you know, it captures that specific tension of turning a corner and not knowing if the camera angle is going to reveal a hallway or a horror. So if the latest big-budget survival horror left you wanting that slower, more atmospheric dread, Crow Country is waiting for you with open, terrifying arms. So next up, we have Children of the Sun. All right, let's talk about a game that asks a very simple question. What if you had one bullet and only one bullet, but you could steer it? That is Children of the Sun in a nutshell, and it is one of the most unique experiences I have had in years. You play as a lone sniper on a mission of revenge against this creepy cult, but the twist is you are not just lining up a shot and calling it a day. Every single level is a puzzle box of violence. You fire that first round, and then you get to redirect its path. Every time the bullet takes out a target, you can change its direction and send it hurtling toward the next enemy. So you are sitting there lining up the perfect trajectory, trying to chain together as many kills as possible with that single projectile. And you know, it feels less like a traditional shooter and more like a tactical puzzle where you are drawing a line through a scene of enemies. The vibe is grimy and stylized with this heavy atmospheric art style that keeps you focused. And when you pull off a perfect chain, watching the bullet ricochet from a sniper to a heavy to the final target hiding behind cover, it is incredibly satisfying. It makes you feel like a genius, even if it took you 10 tries to figure out the path. It is the kind of game that respects your intelligence while still giving you that visceral thrill of a clean shot. If you are looking for something that breaks the mold of what a shooter can be, you absolutely need to put this one on your list. Coming in next, we have Tactical Breach Wizards. Okay, so the name of this game alone tells you exactly what you are getting, and yet it still manages to surprise you at every turn. You lead a squad of renegade mages who also happen to be tactical specialists. Think SWAT team meetings, Dungeons & Dragons. The core loop is turn-based tactics, the kind where positioning and ability combos matter more than raw firepower. But here is the kicker. Every single ability is designed to be fun to use and even more fun to chain together. Your sniper can see the future, letting you guarantee hits. Your demolitions expert is a chain-smoking necromancer who can blow holes in walls, and the game encourages you to experiment wildly with these powers. You're constantly looking for synergies like using a wind spell to blow an enemy into a sniper's line of fire or stacking lightning damage to chain through a whole room. The feedback is immediate and the satisfaction is real. Plus, the game has this brilliant feature where you can rewind any action. If a plan goes sideways, you can just pull back and try a different approach. It removes the frustration and leaves only the fun of solving the puzzle. The writing is sharp and genuinely funny with characters that bounce off each other perfectly. It is one of those rare strategy games that respects your time and your intelligence while making you feel like an absolute genius when a plan comes together. If you have ever bounced off tactics games because they felt too punishing, this is the one that will convert you. And next on the list, it's Pacific Drive. So here is a game that came out of nowhere and completely hooked me. You know, it is just a survival game, but instead of building a base, you have a car. And not just any car. This beat-up old station wagon becomes your home, your storage, your weapon, and your best friend. You are stuck in this huge, weird, supernatural zone in the Pacific Northwest. The government sealed it off because reality is breaking down inside. And you have to drive through it, exploring, scavenging, and trying to figure out a way out. The driving feels great. It is heavy and grounded. You feel every bump and every patch of mud, but the zone is hostile. There are these anomalies everywhere. Floating lights that zap you, gravity wells that throw your car around, weird pillars that suck the life out of your battery. So you are constantly monitoring your car's condition. The engine overheats, the tires go flat, the doors get ripped off, and you have to get out, pop the hood, and fix it while standing in a supernatural wasteland. It is tense. And then there is the storm. When the storm comes, everything goes red and you have to haul ass to the nearest exit. It is pure panic in the best way. Then you get back to your garage, patch up the damage, and plan the next run. It is such a satisfying loop. The atmosphere is perfect, the mystery is engaging, and the car feels alive. If you want a survival game that does something genuinely new, you have to play Pacific Drive. All right, so next up, you have to check out Celico. This one is special. And I need to address the elephant in the room right away. Yes, it is an early access, but do not let that scare you off because this is easily one of the most polished early access launches I have ever seen. We are talking 30 maps, over 10 enemy types, and a full arsenal of weapons that feel incredible to fire. The game runs on the same engine as classic Doom, but the developers have done some kind of dark magic with it. The environments are detailed, the lighting is moody, and the destruction is off the charts. You shoot a wall and chunks of concrete fly everywhere. You blast an enemy and they explode into a mess of purple goo, but the real star here is the AI. These enemies are not just target practice. They shout orders to each other, they notice your flashlight, they try to rush you down when you are reloading. It is exactly like Fear, if you remember that game. Every fight becomes this tactical dance where you are constantly moving, sliding, and kicking guys into walls. There is even a recent update where you can throw dinner plates at enemies like violent frisbees, and they fixed a bug where throwing toilets would crash the game. That is the level of detail we are dealing with. The full release is planned for late 2026, but the current build is absolutely worth your time right now. Coming in next, sometimes you need a game that does not ask you to think. It does not want you to strategize or manage resources. It just wants you to kick. That is Angerfoot in a nutshell, and it landed on PC back in 2024 to a very positive reception. You play as a sneakerhead living in Shit City, a place that looks exactly as pleasant as it sounds, and someone has stolen your prized footwear, so you go on a rampage, but this is not a cover shooter. You are kicking doors off their hinges. You are kicking enemies across the room. You are kicking explosive barrels into groups of anthropomorphic gangsters. The gunplay is there too, of course. You pick up weapons from fallen foes, but ammo runs out fast, so you end up throwing your empty pistol at someone's face to stun them before you boot them into next week. It is chaotic, it is loud, and the soundtrack is this relentless bass-boosted hardstyle assault that keeps your heart pounding. The levels are short and dense, designed to be replayed and perfected. You die in 1 or 2 hits, so every room is a puzzle of aggression where you have to move fast and kick faster. And when you finally clear a stage, you unlock new sneakers that give you crazy perks, like exploding doors or giant enemy heads for easier headshots. And, this game is not relaxing. It is not meant to be. It is pure distilled mayhem, and it is absolutely essential for anyone who misses the frantic energy of games like Hotline Miami. Okay, this next one is less of a game and more of a time machine. UFO 50 is a collection of 50 full, complete games from a fictional 1980s game company called UFO Soft. And I need to stress the word full here, because these are not mini games. We are talking about platformers, shooters, RPGs, puzzle games, deck builders, and even a full-blown JRPG that could take you 20 hours to finish. The framing device is brilliant. You are supposedly someone who found this forgotten console in a storage unit, and you get to blow the dust off each cartridge and discover them for the first time. But here's the genius part. These games are retro in their aesthetics, with that chunky pixel art and limited color palette, but they are modern in their design. Some of the genres, like tower defense and deck builders, did not even exist in the 1980s, yet they are presented here as if they did. You get to see the fictional studio evolve over the years with sequels that iterate on ideas and recurring characters that pop up across different titles. It is a masterclass in game design because you can feel the mechanics being tested, refined, and reinvented right in front of you. Games like Party House, which is this addictive deck builder about throwing parties, or Mortoll, where you sacrifice your own characters to solve puzzles, are worth the price of admission on their own, and the whole thing costs about the same as a single new release. It is an astonishing achievement, and it is absolutely essential for anyone who loves the craft of game making. Coming in next, we have mouthwashing. You know, there is a specific kind of horror that does not rely on monsters jumping out of closets. I mean, it is the horror of sitting with people who are slowly unraveling, knowing there is nothing you can do to stop it. That is mouthwashing. You are on board the Tulpar, a stranded space freighter with a 5-person crew and dwindling supplies. The Captain Curly is a mute, limbless wreck of a man after crash landing the ship, and you have to manually pry his jaw open every day just to feed him painkillers. That act alone, that click and drag motion of forcing a broken man's mouth open, sets the tone for everything that follows. The story jumps back and forth in time, letting you see the crew before the crash and after, slowly piecing together what really happened. And the visual style, all low poly and reminiscent of the original PlayStation, somehow makes it more unsettling. It feels like a forgotten tape you were never meant to find. The characters are not heroes. They are just people, flawed and desperate, trapped in a metal box with nowhere to go. And the game does not let you look away. It is a masterclass in psychological dread, the kind that stays with you for days after the credits roll. Coming in next, have you ever played a game that kicks your ass so hard you almost quit, but then something clicks and you cannot put it down? That is Nine Sols for me. It is from the Taiwanese studio Red Candle Games, and if you know their work, you know they do not mess around. So you will be playing as Yi, this ancient warrior from a race of alien cat people. He wakes up from a long sleep to find his home in ruins and his people scattered, and he is mad. The world is this beautiful hand-drawn place they call Taopunk. It is like ancient Chinese mythology mixed with futuristic sci-fi. You will be walking through a temple and suddenly there is a hologram or a robot. It is weird and it works. The gameplay is a 2D action platformer, lots of running and jumping and exploring, but the combat is the main event. It is all about parrying. You have to stand there and time your deflects perfectly, something like in Sekiro. Miss the timing and you die fast. Get it right and you build up energy to stick explosive talismans on enemies, and it just feels amazing when you get into the flow. The bosses are brutal, like throw your controller brutal, but the game gives you a hub area with characters to talk to between missions. There is a little human boy named Xuan who looks up to you, and an old robot who sells you stuff. You start to care about them, and that makes the hard fights matter more. There are 2 endings, and I will just say the good one is not the easy one. It is tough, it is pretty, and it will stick with you. Alright, so next up we have Windblown. This is from the creators of Dead Cells. If that sentence does not get your attention, I do not know what will. This game is a lightning-fast action roguelike where you are launched out of a cannon into a giant storm to fight for your life. You play as a leaper, some kind of axolotl or bat creature, and you move like a rocket. The dash is your best friend. You zip across gaps, dodge attacks, and chain moves together at a pace that will make your head spin. The combat is built around pairing 2 weapons and using their special alter attacks. So basically, you attack with your primary weapon, and at the end of the combo, you trigger a powerful move from your secondary. Maybe your offhand weapon adds a bleed effect to everything you do, or maybe it launches you into the air for a spinning slam. It creates this awesome rhythm where you are constantly mixing and matching, looking for synergies, and the builds can really get wild. There are crossbows that fire to the beat, paintbrushes that splatter goo, and giant feather-shaped greatswords that spin forever. You can run it solo, which is great, but the co-op is where it really shines. Bring 2 friends and suddenly you are all dashing around, blowing up enemies in a cascade of effects. It is chaotic and beautiful. The game is in early access, but do not let that scare you. It already has a ton of weapons, gifts to modify your build, and that satisfying difficulty curve Dead Cells was known for. If you want a roguelike that respects your time and rewards aggression, this is it.
This cursed monastery devours the soul. We are 5, broken, tormented, and hunted by shadows both real and imagined.
Next on the list, we have the Stone of Madness. So here is a game from the people who made Blasphemous, but this game is nothing like Blasphemous at all. This is a tactical stealth game set in an 18th century Spanish monastery that is also a prison and a mental asylum. You have 5 prisoners and you need to get them out. You control them as a team, switching between characters to use their unique skills. One can cast spells, one can knock out guards with a wooden plank, one big guy named Eduardo can push heavy stuff around to open new paths. And this sounds like a standard heist setup, right? But you know, here is the catch. Every character has serious psychological issues. Eduardo, he is terrified of the dark. If you send him into a shadowy hallway, he starts losing his mind. Leonora, she cannot handle fire. So those torches everywhere are a real problem. Push them too far and they snap. They might go paranoid and stop following orders or just start attacking randomly. So you have to plan every move around keeping your team sane. The monastery runs on a day-night cycle too. Daytime is for sneaking and stealing stuff. Nighttime is when the ghosts show up and they make everything worse. The art style is also insane. We have a hand-painted, frame-by-frame, inspired by the Spanish painter Goya. And you know, it looks like a moving oil painting. It is tense, it is stressful, and it is totally unique. If you want a strategy game that actually makes you care about the people you are controlling, not just their abilities, you need to play this one.
All of my right, title, and interest in the house and land which I own near Mount Holly.
Alright, so next up, let's talk about a game that absolutely consumed me last year. It's Blueprints. So if you are a puzzle person, if you are the kind of player who keeps a notebook by your desk, this is essential. You play as Simon, a teenager who inherits a sprawling estate called Mount Holly from his eccentric great-uncle. But there is a catch. The mansion has 45 rooms, and you need to find a hidden 46th room to claim your inheritance. Sounds simple enough, right? But, you know, every single day the floor plan resets. The rooms shift and change overnight, so each morning you start fresh from the entrance hall with a blank blueprint and a limited number of steps. Every time you open a door, you get to choose what room appears behind it from a few random options: a bedroom, a library, a greenhouse, maybe a dead-end hallway that offers some reward. So basically, you are drafting your own path through this impossible house, trying to reach the far end before you run out of steps. And along the way, you find keys and coins and tools. You discover puzzles within rooms that hint at solutions in other rooms you might not see for days. The game actually tells you to keep a physical notebook, and it means it. You will be scribbling down codes and clues and connections, and when something finally clicks, it is pure euphoria. It took me about 15 hours to reach that 46th room, and I immediately realized I had only scratched the surface. There are safes to open, mysteries to unravel, a whole conspiracy involving a missing children's book author. It is one of the smartest puzzle games I have ever played, and if you love this genre, you owe it to yourself to step into Mount Holly. Coming in next, we have Mortal Sin. You know, there is something incredibly satisfying about a game that makes you feel every single swing. Mortal Sin is a first-person roguelike developed by Nikola Todorovic, one person, which is honestly mind-blowing considering how polished this thing feels. You descend into these procedurally generated nightmares, and the whole point is to carve through enemies with brutal melee combat, but it is not just about hacking and slashing. You chain together slashes, bashes, and kicks into these devastating finishers, and when you land that perfect combo, limbs go flying, and blood paints the walls around you. It has this momentum-based flow where you have to keep moving, keep hitting, never give the enemies a chance to breathe, and the whole thing is wrapped in this absolutely stunning graphic novel art style. Think black, white, and bold reds, like a manga panel come to life. You can even customize the color palettes to match your mood. If you have played games like Ghost Runner or the first-person melee of Dying Light, you will recognize that kinetic energy, but Mortal Sin takes it into this pure, distilled, roguelike structure. It has that one more run addiction factor in spades. The combat is deep, the classes are varied from greatsword berserkers to gun-toting pirates, and every run feels fresh because the levels shift and change around you. It is one of those hidden gems that just demands to be played. Next on the list, we have to talk about Mio, Memories in Orbit. And honestly, this is the kind of game that reminds me why I love this genre so much. At first glance, you see this adorable little robot with golden tendrils for hair, and you think you're in for a chill adventure through a watercolor dreamscape. But then the game punches you right in the teeth. You are tiny, you are fragile, and the vessel, this massive, overgrown ark you're exploring, absolutely does not care about your well-being. The moment-to-moment gameplay here is all about that friction. You'll be chaining together your grapple, your wall climb, and that floaty glide just to survive a platforming section that feels impossible on the first try. And the combat? You're whipping your hair around like some kind of mechanical pop star, but the damage output is low, so you have to be precise and patient. What sets this game apart from something like Hollow Knight, which it clearly takes notes from, is this idea that you never really become a powerhouse. You get upgrades, sure, but they're mostly modifiers that trade one advantage for another, like turning off your health bar just to see the enemy's life total. It's a game that respects your brain over your muscle memory, plus if the difficulty ever feels like too much of a wall, the devs actually included some really smart accessibility options that let you tweak enemy aggression without ruining the core experience. By the time you hit the 40-hour mark and you're uncovering secret endings, you realize the struggle was the whole point. It's not just a game you play, it's a game you survive, and that's exactly why it's a must-play.
Hey! Hey, wait for me! I'm Marco. Nice to meet you.
And finally, let's talk about Cairn. If you haven't heard of it, pay attention, because this indie climbing sim from the game bakers is absolutely blowing up right now. You play as Ava, a pro climber trying to scale this insane mountain called Kami, and the game makes you feel every single inch of that ascent. The controls are the big hook here. You're not just pressing up to climb, you're manually moving each limb with the sticks and triggers, placing hands and feet on specific holds. It's clunky at first, but once it clicks, you get into this incredible flow state where you're reading the rock and planning your route 5 moves ahead, and it's tough. You have to manage stamina, and if you don't find a spot to rest, Ava will start shaking and eventually eat dirt. On top of that, you're dealing with survival mechanics. You need food, water, and warm clothes. You'll be foraging for berries, fishing in mountain streams, and cooking meals at your campsite just to stay alive. Now the reviews have been stellar. PC Gamer gave it a 91, GameSpot gave it a 9 out of 10, and it's sitting at a solid 85 on Metacritic. Players are loving it too, with thousands positive reviews on Steam. But look, it's not perfect. I've seen complaints about the limb detection being janky, and yeah, I've definitely died because Ava refused to grab a hold that was right in front of her face. The ragdoll physics when you fall are also kind of ridiculous. You'll slide for ages and sometimes roll off another cliff. But honestly, the highs outweigh the lows. There's nothing quite like the relief of hammering in a piton after a sketchy climb and just hanging there catching your breath. If you're into games like Death Stranding or anything that kind of slow, or if you just want a game that actually challenges you, you need to get this one. I mean, this is totally worth every penny. But yeah, those are just some of the indie games that you need to give a chance to. There are still lots out there, and maybe we haven't seen them yet, so be sure to leave your suggestions below. But as always, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.